views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Hello and welcome to the American Veteran. I'm Dale Parish, your host, with Bud Mendenhall as co-host. Before Bud introduces our guest, I have a short announcement I'd like to make. My wife, Sally, and I stopped at IHOP out on 24 West. I always admired IHOP because they give veterans a discount. But this day, I told the waitress I was a veteran and if she'd give me a discount, and she said, well, let's see your ID, and I was never asked for ID before. A few minutes later, she came back and said, we don't give discounts anymore, and couldn't figure that out, so we asked to talk to the manager, and the manager come out and says, well, I'll give you a discount on your portion, but don't ask. We won't do it anymore. And Sally says, well, did I have a TV program, and we'll just announce that? And she says, oh no, don't do that. And she says, I'll have the general manager contact you. Well, I give her my card, had my name, address, phone number, email address on it. He never contacted me, so I just wanted the veterans to know that don't be disappointed if you go into IHOP, especially the one on 24, that they won't give you a discount. Since he didn't contact me, I don't know about the other IHOPs. We haven't been into a IHOP since. Bud, would you like to introduce our guest?
Yes, our guests today are Ruth Rolig, a nurse that was in the Army, and Deb Parish was in the Air Force as a mechanic and a nurse now.
Deb,
yes.
When was you in the service?
I went in 1976, and I was in until 85. So.
Okay, and then what was your main duties?
My main duty in the Air Force was aircraft maintenance. I worked on several different aircraft at one time or another. Not all at the same time, but I worked on F-100s, F-105s, F-4s, and C-5s and C-141s and 130s.
They're all strange numbers to me.
Yeah.
A C-5 is probably the biggest, at the time, is the biggest military cargo aircraft there is.
That one that opens in the back and they just
and the front.
And the front.
Yes.
They just drive in.
Yeah.
I'll be darned. Sounds like a big variety of.
It is. It was quite different. Each one was different, of course, but it was very interesting.
Yeah, I bet.
Where did you learn to work on them? Did you go to school for that?
I went through, well, after basic training, I went to tech school at Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls, Texas. So, and that's where they trained us. And after that, most of the training was hands-on, and through just the courses they gave us, we'd have to study them and then take the test to pass them and everything.
Was there very many women doing what you did?
No, not when I was doing it. I think there's quite a few more now than there was. Where I was stationed, there was usually maybe about 3 or 4 of us out there on the flight line working on the planes. Sometimes some of us were like in the hangars at times, the inspection hangar, doing the time compliance inspections and everything on the aircraft, making sure everything was still in working order.
Otherwise, the pilots, their lives were in your hands. Then,
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
When the pilots came out to leave to fly on a mission, whatever, we would have to go through checks with the pilots. They would check their flaps, and we had to indicate whether they were working or not and let them know. We would also wave them out and send them on their way.
Yeah.
And while they were gone, we just had to pretty much wait until they came back, and then when they came back, we'd bring them back in and put the chocks in and fasten them down, put the pins in the drop tanks so nothing would accidentally be released. So.
Yeah. Now, how often did they give a final, a thorough inspection of a plane? And who did that?
There would be different parts of the plane would have different time frames where they would have to inspect make sure everything was working well and grease the things that need to be greased, all the fittings, and make sure that oil was good and the hydraulic fluid was good and so forth on everything. Make sure the lights were all in working order, so if something was not working, it would actually indicate to the pilot that something was wrong. So.
Well, you worked with a lot of electronics and everything then.
I did. After the part of the time while I was in the reserves, I was working at General Dynamics also, building F-16s. So at that point, the F-16 is noted as the fly-by-wire aircraft, and there's a lot of electronics, and I was the electrician doing that, wiring up the airplanes. So.
Oh.
Now, was you the only female, or was there other ones there?
There were other females.
They give you a hard time?
No. There was a few maybe that tried to, just kind of overlook them.
That's the best thing you can do.
Most of them were pretty good. In fact, I had, when I was in tech school, our trainer said that he likes having women out there on the flight line because there are some areas on the plane where he said the man's hand is just not small enough to get into some of those places, and the women could actually get their hands up in there. So.
Sure.
Did you ever have to go like 2 weeks away?
Oh, yeah.
Every year?
Every summer we had 2 weeks away somewhere. So in the reserves, it was more just at the base you were stationed at, because you were actually stationed in the reserves at a Air Force base. So you'd have your 2 weeks that you had to serve there most of the time. Sometimes they would go somewhere else. One year my unit went to Turkey and everything. So the 2 weeks time, one time we had operation readiness inspections where the Air Force inspectors would come and grade us on how ready we were for the event of a war and everything else. And at that time we did everything as if we were in a war. We parked the aircraft like we were putting them in hangars and everything else. We wore the chemical warfare suits, the helmets, had the canteen with us, everything.
Yeah.
Where were you at? Were you in Fort Wayne when you did this? Or?
I started out at Bearfield Air National Guard here in Fort Wayne, and then I went to Dover Air Force Base in Dover, Delaware in the reserves. And then later I was at Carswell Air Force Base in Fort Worth, Texas.
Oh, okay. My brother was in the Air National Guard at Bearfield. That's wonderful.
Okay.
And he had to leave every once in a while for 2 weeks.
One year I did summer camp with them. It was up in Alpena, Michigan, where we had to go.
That's where it was, Alpena, Michigan.
Yeah.
Right.
We traveled Michigan a lot, quite often, and we'd see military trucks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't remember blue ones, though.
Don't remember very many blue ones. The big trucks were all green still, just like the Army trucks. The only ones that were really blue would be on the flight line. We had the Follow Me truck. When the aircraft would land, you drive that, and they would follow you to the where they would park their aircraft.
Oh,
so
I see.
we'd have to pick up their drag chutes after they were deployed and everything. Also, on the older aircraft, the F-4s had the drag chutes, and we'd have to pack those in the back and everything else.
Now, what did they have out there when you were out there? What kind of airplanes were them? The fighters?
Bearfield?
At Bearfield, it was fighters then, yes. There was the, I think that's where I worked on the F-105s.
They're talking about losing the ones they've got now. What do they call them?
I don't know.
Warhogs.
Warhogs, yeah. I forget what my brother was calling them.
They're attack aircraft, actually.
Yeah.
But they keep calling. They keep saying on fighters, but I can't remember what the number was. It's
They're called the Black
A-10s?
Snakes or something.
A-10s, I think, maybe.
Something like
Yeah,
that.
A-10, yeah. Weather planes or something.
Yeah.
So,
And they're going to fight, try to keep them, the fighters there,
Yeah.
though. I know they wanted to close it at one time and move it, but that didn't happen.
I think that would be a mistake.
It would, yeah. Yeah, exactly
Sure
right.
would.
I know. I don't think they're in competition with Bunker Hill, you know.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
You know, it's a lot bigger.
I remember one time we had to service the aircraft after it came back in, so they told me to go get the LOX cart, which is liquid oxygen. And so I went and got it and was towing it back over to the aircraft and went to back it in. And I backed up towards the aircraft. And quality assurance was watching me and never stopped me or anything. And afterwards he goes, I'm going to have to write you up because you're not supposed to back anything towards the aircraft. He says, but I just had to watch you do it. I don't know how you did it, but somehow you managed to get that LOX cart in there perfect, you know. Because it hinged in two places where it hooked to the tow vehicle and at the cart also. So it was like a double hinge thing going on there.
Yeah, yeah, that's like a semi pulling two trailers trying to back it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell you.
Well, would you recommend young ladies to go into the reserve or the actual air or the?
If I would recommend it, yeah. If they don't want, if they're not sure if they really want to go active duty, then I would say try the reserves or the guard, and you know, get your feet wet, so to speak. See if you like it. If you, you know, you're going to go through the same basic training as active duty.
Yeah.
You're going to go through the same tech school or whatever that you're going to be going into as the active duty. It's just when you're done with that, you go to the reserve or guard unit. Then if you decide you really like it and you want to make something more of it, make it your career, then you could do that. But I recommended it to my son.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and where's what's he in now, or what's he in?
He is now in the Navy. He decided that, but he said if he was going to go in, he wasn't just going to do part-time. He was going to get the whole experience. So he went active duty right off the bat. So.
Yeah, and he's now where?
He's in Groton, Connecticut at submarine school right now.
Submarine school.
Is that the grandson you had here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. I know there's a friend of ours that she just retired from the Air National Guard out there. She was I don't know if you call her a nurse. She just worked in the pharmacy.
Okay.
And she got her 20 in and she got out and she enjoyed it. Yeah, she got a good pension, good insurance. And
had she gone to pharmacy school so that she was a could be a registered pharmacist?
I don't know, but if she did or not, to be honest with you. I don't know.
And sometimes they can.
Yeah, I know I think she worked at Parkview Hospital and then worked out there.
What do you ladies think about women joining the regular Army now when they can be in combat?
There are certain things where I would think that they might have difficulty in actual combat situations. But I think, of course, when I was growing up, ladies didn't do those things. But I think we're more relaxed, and certainly women can do a lot of things that years ago they would never have been thought that they could do them.
Yeah.
But
I can understand them being, say, pilots, combat pilots, but not to be in the trenches. I just don't.
Well, I think
that.
there are those that can do it. My one daughter went in the Army right after high school, And I certainly would think that she could do most everything. She's, I think she now has her 20 years in that she can retire if she wants to. But she also, when she went in, she was over in Germany for quite some time, and she was constantly making Soldier of the Month and Soldier of the Year. And she was just has always been very athletic and could do a lot of these things. And I think she would give any enemy a tough time. Yeah. But now she is. She finally went to medical school, and she is now a major in the medical corps. Yeah. So
I really didn't mean that they couldn't do it. I just
well, when you stop to think that if you are living in a war zone and you have armies coming this way and going that way, and there's a lot of things that women have to do and will do if given the proper motivation.
Well, you know, in the police force in Fort Wayne, the sheriff's department, some of those women are pretty tough. Yes. They're up. I mean, they can do the firearms. They can take a man down, and you know, they've gotten into firefights before.
Yeah, I didn't mean that at all.
Yeah, I think they've changed so much over the years. Women are more
even when I was
active or something.
Even when I was in, I always thought that, you know, if it came down to it, I joined. I knew what I was joining into, and if it came down to it, I'd do what I had to do, you know. Yeah. And I think that's why a lot of people do look at it, you know. But when I was in the women were not allowed in combat at that time either. But there were other countries that their women were in combat.
Oh yeah.
Our own country, back during the Revolutionary War and Civil War, there were a lot of women that were helping out in those situations, you know. So
some of them didn't know those women.
No, they didn't. That's true. Like I said, they did what they had to do. Yeah. But I think if they're willing to do the job that's required of them and they can do it, then all for it. They know what they're getting into when they join.
Yeah. Guess I'm old-fashioned.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say that don't think that just because they can be up in the front lines and do those things that they don't enjoy being just a woman.
That's right.
Yeah, true.
That's true too.
But
I think
on the front lines, do you treat them like women?
You treat them as another soldier.
As another soldier, right.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, you can't, yes.
If you're going to help them into a foxhole, you could end up getting shot, so you better.
What was you going to say, Bud?
Yes.
I forgot now. I just think women are more physical nowadays than what they were.
Oh.
You know, because of the training they go through, which when, you know, I was young, the girls didn't, you know, go through much athletic training in schools. You know, they got more gymnastics, they do more. And I'll tell you something, my grandson wrestled for Snyder. And this one girl walked in, and I thought she was a cheerleader. I said, "What? I didn't know wrestler teams had cheerleaders." He said, "No, Grandpa, they don't." I said, "What's that girl doing over there?" He said, "She wrestles." I said, "She wrestles?" I said, "What girl is she going to wrestle?" He said, "She don't wrestle girls." And I couldn't believe it, because she wasn't muscle bound and all that, but when she started wrestling, she took the guy down and almost beat him. It sort of surprised him, and it surprised me too. But her mother was sitting right next to us, and it's just that they do different things nowadays, I guess. They're more up to get more daring or whatever.
Girls are getting into more and more physical things nowadays than they used to.
Yeah, they play on football teams?
Yes, my son had a girl playing on his football team at one time.
Did it?
Yeah.
It was my daughter had a very interesting experience in that when she was over in Germany, she and another woman were assigned to the German army. because the German army does not have women. And I guess they were sent over there to give the German army an idea of what women could do in the army. At any rate, she was there with them, and ultimately, when she came back, I don't know if it was because of because of her experience or not, but the German army decided not to have women.
Yeah. Well, Israel, I believe, has always had, it's mandatory. I don't know how much time they serve, it was 2 years or.
Well, if it, someplace like Israel, where there's such a small country, if you have somebody attacking, you want every body you can get.
Yeah.
And you want them to be able to fight in one way or another.
Sometimes I think that's a good idea in this country to have mandatory 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea for most high school kids when they get out to do something like that, just in reserve or in the guard or something.
Yeah.
Well, this was one of the reasons that my daughter originally went into the Army, was because she just did not know what she wanted to do, and so she went into the Army, and she enjoyed it very much. Yeah. And of course, as I say, now she's got her 20 years.
She made a career out of it.
Yes. And she became a drill sergeant. That was another interesting experience she had when she got out to get her degree at University of Oregon. Her major was in geology, and they had to do I think it was 6 weeks of field work out in eastern Oregon, and there were I think it was 7 young men and there were 3 women. And of the 3 women, my daughter was an Army drill sergeant, and one of the other girls was a Marine drill sergeant. So I think those poor guys were kind of intimidated.
Yeah, I'll bet. Well, Deb, you went into medical sometime or other.
Not in the military. I went into it quite some time later. 98 was when I graduated nursing school. So, and I've been doing that in the civilian side. So, I worked in a hospital for the first year. Then I worked for a clinic with a pediatrician, and then I've been school nursing, and now I'm a jail nurse. So.
Jail nurse.
Yeah. And then I do subbing at school nurses too, still, and the corporate nurse there said, she can handle these kids, she's a jail nurse.
Yeah.
So would you change anything?
I might change. When I got out, I got fed up with some people that I was working with in the reserves, and I would probably change that, try to just maybe change my area that I'm working instead of getting out completely.
Yeah.
That would be the only thing probably that I would change.
Yeah.
Other than that, I enjoyed my time there. I liked the experience I had, the people I met, and so forth.
Wouldn't trade your experience for anything.
No.
Right?
No.
That's with you too, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
I was, as I say, I was RA all the way until I met my husband, and then of course, and I did not continue with it because it would not have fit in with his career. He had never been in service. As a matter of fact, he always said, boy, I can hardly wait till the grandkids get old enough and come and ask me, Grandpa, were you in one of those big wars? And he said, I can look at him and say, no, I wasn't. Go talk to your grandmother.
Yeah, I used to tell my son, I said, well, you know, if your friends at school ever say something to you about your mama wears combat boots, you can say, yes, she does.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I think where my kids grew up, there were some kids that said that, and they just looked at them and said, yes. What does yours wear?
That's right.
I have a grandson that's in the Army National Guard right now, and he's going into the regular Army in August, and he really loves the Army. That really surprised me, and he really likes it.
Yeah.
And he goes to different schools. They keep sending him. I guess you got to go to different schools before you get a rank now. Or,
was that right?
Yeah. To get promoted, he has to take so many classes. Then the next month take so many more.
Well, they get trained for various different things sometimes.
Yeah.
And so they have to, a lot of times, the more things that you can do, it opens up a lot of doors.
That's what he said.
Elsewhere.
Yeah.
When you attain certain levels, that's how it was for me also. If you had those certain levels attained, then you were more, even though you had time in rank, time in service, if you didn't attain these certain levels, then you might not be able to get the next promotion, the next rank. So.
Yeah, that's it, what he was saying, yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, the nurse's rank, is that the same as the Army?
Yes.
You know, lieutenant,
yes.
second, first, captain.
The same.
On
the
up.
same thing, because it is the Army.
Yeah, true. I think if I read it right, there was a lady, first one made a 4-star general. Did
That's
you read
right.
that? Yeah.
Up until I don't know when they first became a 1-star general, but previously, while I was in most of the years that I was in, the highest rank was bird colonel.
Oh.
And that was, of course, the chief of the corps.
Yeah.
But that has changed now.
Yeah, apparently. Make a 4-star general.
Well, I don't think they can make 4-star. I don't know what the qualifications are that are required for these things.
Yeah.
But yeah, they.
You'd do it again, right?
Oh, I would do it again. If I had stayed in, I would probably have been retired as a lieutenant colonel, because there weren't the only. I think the only colonel we had for a long time was the chief of the corps.
Yeah.
So the highest rank that you could expect if you were in the general population would have been a lieutenant colonel.
Yeah. Is the Air Force rank about the same?
It's pretty much the same. I was a staff sergeant when I got out. It had, you mentioned buck sergeant earlier. I know they don't have buck sergeant anymore. It goes to senior airman, and then staff sergeant now. So, and the change from the airman to the sergeant has the star included in the center of the stripes.
Yeah.
So.
Say that again.
In the center of the stripes, there's a star.
Right.
But when you're an airman first class, senior airman, there's no star in the center.
Oh, I see.
As a sergeant, then you get the star in the center.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the half hour is up, ladies. Bud, I want to thank you all for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Well, we appreciate it, especially at the last minute. So remember, freedom is not free. If you see a veteran or someone in uniform, just walk up to them, shake their hand, say thank you for your service. They'll appreciate it.